Welcome home.
Murder's a mortal sin.
Revenge is a long but treacherous
You know what means?
So often the answers are before us,
It doesn't matter what you
Only
want.
we allow ourselves to see them.
Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and now with that opening out of the way, an admittedly shorter opening, but though I probably could have played the previous cutscene. Anyway, I'm just wasting time. Welcome back to the Silent Hill Downpour commentary. We are in prison, but not the same prison we were initially going to. Yes, it seems that after Anne apparently killed Murphy, well, yeah, she took him to here. Well, to be honest, I don't really know how exactly Murphy got here, because, I mean, Anne is still running around, but she just kind of... maybe the comic book explains, because I don't exactly know how Anne lost Murphy. Well, I mean, there is somewhat of an explanation for this in one of the endings, but I guess I'll probably save that. So, the scene on the boat in the previous part could possibly imply that Anne killed Murphy, and that's how he ended up here. In the meantime, look forward to this visual. To adjust my microphone for a second, I apologize for the noise. Yeah, take a look at that. That is... yeah, some pretty dark history went down behind this prison, as you will soon come to see. You actually did see a little piece of this, actually, earlier on, before in the Centennial building. Right back around the point when Murphy was being transferred, but... yeah, as you can no doubt tell by the Overlook Penitentiary, there were some dark things that happened to this prison. In fact, I believe you can actually find some documents that actually do state about, how prisoners reacted here. And I gotta admit, like, in terms of, design-wise for Silent Hill... hang on. Sorry about this. I really should probably done this before commentary, but whatever. Anyway, you use this to figure out a puzzle. Anyway, in terms of, like, locales in Silent Hill, I'd say the prison setting is honestly one of the more underutilized places, because you don't... to my memory, I don't think there was a prison setting since Silent Hill 2, and I will say that I do think Silent Hill Downpour does more with a prison setting than Silent Hill 2 ever did. And again, it's really interesting to think, because this is a more modern-looking prison, whereas the one in Silent Hill 2 was used in the 1800s. I don't know, I find it interesting, and I really do hope that, you know, if there was to be a future Silent Hill game, that they make use of this setting, because it's cool. And again, Overlook Penitentiary, reference to The Shining, which is the Overlook Hotel. Trivia. But again, as stated before, you excuse me. You pretty much lost all of your items at this point, and, well... yeah, this is basically get all our stuff back. Well, I mean, pretty much any and all sort of items you collected for side quests and plot are pretty much taken at this stage, so... yeah. Basically, this is just to stock up. But at the same time, though, what you do get in exchange is some pretty nifty stuff, like, you know, shotgun if you have the codes for it. I mean, you can feasibly just get the keycard and, you know, go on your merry way out, but, yeah, the prison tends to be a little bit, enemy-heavy, and you are kind of forced to fight at certain points, which is a point of criticism I'll get into with the final part, which I plan on recording later tonight. We're finishing it tonight, goddammit! But again, I'll save those thoughts for later. Probably turn off the TV. There's footies in the background. But yeah, in terms of areas, or at least in terms of, like, final areas, I guess you could basically consider this the game's nowhere portion. Although it is significantly less, mind-screwy compared to Shattered Memories, I'd say. Well, Shattered Memories and a lot of the previous Silent Hill games. I mean, I don't think Silent Hill 4 had one. I don't think Silent Hill Homecoming had one either. I can't remember about Origins, because it's been years since I last played it. And, yeah, while it might be a little bit lackluster in terms of content that can completely screw the mind around, I don't know. It's interesting. But again, you also do get nice bits of symbolism with the, well, diaries that you see lying around. Nothing specific, but it does have a... you know, it packs a nice little bit of symbolism in terms of other people that have been in the prison, which may even relate to Murphy itself. But yeah, we'll see the resolution to the man sending diary letters to his little lover a little bit later, which does... well, it has a bit of relevance, but again, it always makes for some nice background ambience, which is something that I have always appreciated about even the later Silent Hill games, that while not exactly as effective as some of the earlier titles, it, you know, in terms of ambience, there is a lot of effort put into, you know, each and every little scrap of documents that you have, which is, I guess some could consider a bit of an outdated design philosophy, since, you know, that sort of Resident Evil sort of, well, I say outdated, but considering that the Resident Evil 2 remake kind of brought that back, so maybe not anymore. We might see a little bit more of that in more recent titles. I mean, or at least I'd hope so, considering the fact that, you know, if the interest is there, we could have more in the vein of, you know, Silent Hill. I don't know. It's just interesting to think about, though. There you go. I guess, something I thought I brought up last part, but I guess I might as well bring up here, is really how the flashlight is handled. And it was mostly a tangent I was going to bring up in terms of the fixed camera angle perspective thing, in the sense that, especially in the case of games like, say, Silent Hill 2 and, you know, well, Silent Hill 2 and pretty much the classic series in general, is that the flashlight was able to better illuminate rooms such as this, where even if you turn the flashlight off, you can still see the faint outlines of things inside, whereas in games like Downpour, and most especially with a lot of titles of the 7th generation that I've noticed, yeah, you can't really see a lot if you don't have any sort of, like, major light source, unless of course you jack the brightness up to an extreme degree, but then again that just makes the game look ugly. I don't know, it's just a weird quirk that I noticed. I don't know if it's to do with modern lighting engines being a little bit too good for their own use, but I don't know. This, however, I think is a pretty cool bit of psychological horror going down. A nice way of lengthening the hallway while you while you wade through the water and fall beneath the surface. Because Murphy is a dope who trips over his own 2 feet. That'd actually make for a cool thumbnail, actually. I guess I found my thumbnail image for this part. I was actually initially thinking of using the segment earlier on where you saw Murphy, like, traveling across that prison riot, but yeah, I think this works better. And this is basically Murphy's letter from Carol, which, as you all know, was his darling wifey poo, who, yeah, she hates his guts. Which, I mean, it's understandably so, and it's not a plot point that I'm really that miffed by comparison to someone like, say, Grace from Heavy Rain, because, you know, well, partially. I mean, tempers will get very frayed over the loss of a child, and especially when it comes to, you know, a kid as young as Charlie. Yeah, I can see why Carol would be as angry with Murphy, not just for not being able to protect him, but also for the way Murphy acted in the aftermath. Because, I mean, while he might not appear as, you know, while Murphy might not appear very criminally inclined, I mean, given his backstory, you know, that you did see bits and pieces of over at the St. Maria's Monastery, and in turn, what he did to get imprisoned by, you know, stealing a police car, going on a lengthy chase just to get revenge on Pat Napier, it really does showcase this man's dedication to, you know, what he was doing. And a bit of this was meant to imply something similar to the kid that was lobotomized in St. Maria's Monastery, which was meant to be implied to be Murphy for a certain ending, but yeah, that's something I'll probably discuss in the final part when we get around to talking about the endings, but again, I'll probably discuss that when we get there. Anyway, the 2 enemies that you've just seen, and the ones that I probably should have commented on, but my scatterbrain just sort of went off topic. Yeah, those are the final enemies of the game. I don't know what their names are, but they're basically a beefier variant of the prisoner enemies. They're buff as hell, they will charge at you, and they hurt, so be careful. But I mean, again, especially with that enemy in particular and the weeping bats, I can see a lot of people's points of criticism that Silent Hill Downpour has uninspired enemy design. Because, I mean, this really does scream, you know, you literally could have seen these enemies in Condemned Criminal Origins and, you know, nothing would have been any different, so I can see that point to some degree, but considering that Murphy's fears, as I mentioned before, are more grounded in reality compared to that of Angela or James, I think it makes sense that Murphy would see bulky, buff-ass prisoners as a much bigger threat than, say, you know, lying figures or abstract daddies. Ooh, press the big shiny red button. Thank you for activating the self-destruct system. That I do think was a legitimately good jump scare. That that actually did get me the first time around. Yeah, but anyway, basically what we're going to be covering for the rest of this video is basically just the first part of the prison section, and we'll save the final part for the Otherworld section, and of course the ending, and, you know, we'll probably be covering... Well, that was a bit scary. Just as I was taking a drink as well. Pepsi, how I love you so. But yeah, basically what you have to do is just deposit all your items and, you know, get through. And this basically tells you about the backstory of the Overlook Penitentiary, where people die and ghostly shit happens. Which could basically act as a cover story for pretty much every single thing in the Silent Hill series, but yeah, I think the ambience works here. Like, I mean, there's nothing majorly related to the overall plot, but, you know, it does add a nice bit of history to Silent Hill as a town, where, you know, it's not just the prison beneath the Silent Hill Historical Society that, you know, caused, you know, so much grief, you know, mostly due to the fact that there was a lot of, you know, sickness and death and prisoners at the time, but also in terms of how, you know, even in the modern day, going to the Overlook Penitentiary is not a nice place to be. But again, deposit your items, and unlike Silent Hill 2, you're not stripped of them for long. Just for this little section where you have to go across and get all your stuff back. And again, it's all just in a small but pretty satisfying puzzle to open the door. Yeah, see, that's the beefy fucker, and again, maybe my eyes are tricking me here, but I swear to God he does have the Halo of the Sun written on his chest. I think he does. I'm not too sure, I might have to have a look at that again in post, but if not that, then something similar, which, you know, could imply that there were also prisoners of the cult put in here. I mean, I know by Silent Hill 3 it's meant to imply that Heather Mason pretty much had already dealt with the cult at that stage, but I don't know, implicitly speaking, you know, the cult could still be around. I don't know, a Silent Hill game for another day that we'll probably never see again. Well, unless of course it's a pachinko machine, but that's neither here nor there in this case. Now all we have left to deal with is the big fucker himself. Come out, Mr. Prisoner. I don't have a name for him, so let's just call him Halo of the Sun. You see? This is the benefit of firing from the hip. And this is basically where you see the resolution to that guy. Yeah, he committed suicide in prison. Again, it's something that you wouldn't really think about, but I guess this is also Murphy, in turn, reflecting on his experiences in prison, which, honestly, I actually would have liked to have seen the game focus on this a little bit more. Like, I mean, maybe not specifically in Silent Hill Downpour, but maybe as a Silent Hill game in and of itself. Like, I mean, actually, you know what? You could probably base it on that, guy from Silent Hill 2. The, you know, the guy who was falsely accused of a crime. You know, when you had the hanging bodies and James had to pick the right one in order to get the key to, you know, get out of the little labyrinth. Yeah, you could probably base the Silent Hill game off him because he was innocent of his crime. And because of the false guilt that was placed on him, you know, you could see a bunch of different things in prison, and as, you know, Silent Hill tends to do, it could warp the landscapes, and, you know, you could have a labyrinthian attempt where you try and, you know, prove your innocence to a Pyramid Head figure that, you know, determines who's guilty and who's innocent. I mean, again, granted, that might sound a little bit derivative to have yet another Pyramid Head sort of figure with, you know, the Bogeyman and the Butcher already being shoved on top, but to be perfectly honest, depending on how you set him up and how his mannerisms were, I think you could, you know, by proxy make him... Actually, you know what, you could probably just use the Bogeyman in and of itself, because I think the Bogeyman itself does have enough wiggle room to, generally speaking, be, you know, tangible to any sort of thing related to guilt. Because, I mean, what is the Bogeyman if not an abstract monster born of somebody's fears? I mean, if Pyramid Head was designed, you know, based on the town's executioners, then, and, you know, the Butcher was based on, you know, pure unbridled hatred, rage, and a lust for violence, then I'm pretty sure the Bogeyman, you know, could be representative of fear, which he was in the case of Murphy, you know, because he saw Pat Napier. And, as Murphy will be to a certain other character that we will see quite soon. And another thing I do want to comment on is that I really do like that nice little remark from the little memo that you can pick up earlier on where, you know, Frank Coleridge tells Murphy, I think this will do you some good. again, that's part of the reason why I do genuinely like Frank Coleridge as a character, whereas even if you don't see him that much, you can still see the effect that he had on Murphy throughout his many, phantom conversations with him, and also with the, little memos that he leaves about. It's things like this that don't entirely, make me cynical towards Silent Hill Downpour, despite not being of the same quality of the earlier Silent Hill games. And anyway, that was also the section I was talking about earlier when I said that, the things are in real time and, you can die, because enemies will attack you. And speaking of the things that will happen if you just choose to sit in your ass and die, yeah, this place will fill up with water, so, make sure you get those screws off quickly, because, yeah, I've died here a couple of times, and, it is not pretty. And I swear to god the water rises faster if you're playing on the hard mode, which, as you can probably tell at the beginning of the game, I am, so, yeah, better hurry, Murphy. And now you have this nice little Alien-esque segment where you have to run away from this creature. I have no idea what it is. I think it's meant to be a prisoner, but I don't know, it seems kind of weird. So just push the X button for your life, and Murphy should be okay. Hopefully. I think. Just figured I'd show that off just to, showcase what few cutscenes are actually there, but again, while it might not while it might not look like a lot of exciting things are really happening here beyond a lot of enemies to kill and just a bunch of little memos hidden here and there, I do still think the prison area does hold, some pretty cool set pieces and as well as, nice little bits of psychology and backstory for the stuff that Murphy experienced in prison, which, I think the game probably could have focused on a little bit more than it did, but on the whole, I liked it. Again, I think a lot of the more visually interesting stuff, something that would catch people who are watching a video's attention more than it would somebody who's... Well, I mean, it would catch the attention of somebody who's playing the game, but I think it'd be a little bit more engaging viewer-wise if you stick around for the next part, because that's... Well, I mean, beyond covering the ending, that's when the other segment kicks in, and that's when things begin to get a little bit more interesting. And yeah, you can see right there how powerful that enemy is, because he just tanked a couple of shotgun blasts directly, and you can see, the bullet marks and the blood that was bleeding off him, man. That was like... Let me just say that it's nothing to trifle with. So, yeah, be on your guard. Yeah, and they're still playing the combat theme that you get in town here. Kind of surprising, but nonetheless, I do still kind of like it. And, yeah, that was also something I could probably mention about the soundtrack, is that the sound actually does have subtle touches, like the music slightly picking up, depending on whether or not you're in combat. Again, it's mostly for stuff in town, but, it's a nice little detail that works, especially when you're attacked by prisoners who like to throw things at you. Well, I will give Silent Hill Downpour this, they're nowhere near as annoying as they are in, Condemned to Bloodshot, because, yeah, that game is pretty bullshit when it comes to dealing with enemies, especially the enemies in the bloody... Fuck, what was it? I think it was like a museum or something? I can't remember the level, but... Whatever. That game sucks, especially the ones in the armor. I don't know. Excuse me. Anyway, we take a left turn down here and we come across another document. Yeah, Silent Hill Penitentiary executes an innocent man. Is that meant to imply that Murphy was executed? Or something more? Or perhaps it was meant to be a nice little, reference to, the innocent man in Silent Hill 2. Who knows, even though it was meant to be a different prison. I don't know. The prison setting really needs to be used to a much greater degree in terms of horror, because I mean, the only game that I think really comes close to this is Arkham Asylum with Scarecrow segments, but even then that doesn't really leave a lot to the imagination, because the rest of the game is taken up by Joker here! Filled up the room with laugh gas. Soon Murphy Pendleton will never escape my grasp! I can't do a good Mark Hamill Joker. Or any Joker, really. But anyway, I know it might sound like there's not really a lot to say here, but we are getting to the end of this, thank goodness, and yeah, this scene should become very familiar. Well, vaguely. You've seen a bit of it in flashbacks, but now we begin to see the evidence pile up, both figuratively and literally. Blood. Hope it is not Chris's blood. Shiv. Hope it is not Jill's Shiv. Evidence. Hope it is not Barry's... I don't even know what the hell that is. I think that was a... oh, it's a badge. And a radio. Hope that is not Harry's radio. Anyway, I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and next time we finish off Silent Hill Downpour. Bye-bye.
How's it going, Murph? Heard you're gonna be leaving us. You weren't thinking of leaving before you paid back my favor, were you?